My dad had me when he was in his early 20s, and my stepmom, Elle, 34, is closer in age to me, 25. Both Elle and I are pregnant at the same time. She's currently 34 weeks, while I'm 32 weeks. We're both having girls. Since I was a little kid, I wanted to name my firstborn girl Elizabeth after my gran, who raised me while Dad was in medical school. My partner likes the name Elizabeth, and we've decided that she'll be called Elizabeth Catherine after both of our grandmothers. We've also decided to keep the name a surprise. However, Elle and Dad have recently announced the name of their daughter on social media using an embroidered blanket. She's to be named Elizabeth Gabrielle, but Lizzie for short. Elizabeth after Elle's best friend Beth, who passed away last year, and Gabrielle after her mom, who passed away 4 years ago. Elle and I had talked about baby names, and she'd never mentioned using Elizabeth. If I'm honest, I'm upset by it. I picked the name first. It holds a lot of meaning to me. I messaged Elle telling her and Dad to pick something else, anything else, because I was also using Elizabeth, and it would be confusing to have two Elizabeths, especially given how close they'll be. Elle told me that she wasn't going to move on this and that she wanted to honour Beth by naming her daughter after her. When I spoke to Dad, he told me they were naming her Elizabeth whether I liked it or not. He told me that I was being selfish, thinking I could decide who could use which names and thinking that my reasoning for using the name Elizabeth was more important than Elle's. Dad also told me that as their daughter is likely to be born first, then they'll name her Elizabeth and I'll have to pick something else. Elle has since told me I'm being an idiot and has asked me not to contact her until I apologise. Am I the idiot for telling my stepmom she can't use the baby name I chose? By keeping my baby's name private, I mean we haven't announced she'll be called Elizabeth Catherine. However, my dad knew I wanted to use Elizabeth as we talked about it quite a bit after Gran passed. You are the idiot. Your reason for using the name isn't any more important than Elle's reason. You don't own a name, and there absolutely can be two Elizabeths, especially if you give them different nicknames. See every Irish family that has 5 Johns with various nicknames. Don't tank your relationship with your father over something as trivial as this. Agree. My first daughter is named Elizabeth, the most beautiful woman's name in the world. All my dolls were named Elizabeth. I named her after Elizabeth I, the most powerful woman who ever lived, and Elizabeth Taylor, the most beautiful woman in the world. My ex's late mother's name was Elizabeth and she went by Betty. Her mother was also Elizabeth and went by Ruby. My daughter goes by Beth. You can have more than one Elizabeth in any family. There will be a nickname for each girl. Exactly, the stepmom already said they're using Lizzie for short, so I don't see what the issue is. This is how OP sounds. I know you want to honour your dead friend and all, but I called dibs on the name Elizabeth so you can't use it. This poor woman lost her best friend only a year ago. Stepmom is naming her kid after someone she cared about. That's not name stealing. That's an unfortunate coincidence. I was expecting a story of, we told my dad in secret but she found out and now wants to name her kid Araucaria. But no, common name, genuine reasons for naming. Also, I do think OP has no right to the name. The grandmother was the dad's mother. But OP's dad knew she wanted to use the name, and that's an idiot move on his part. OP, you're not the idiot. Your dad knew and is pandering to his new younger wife. They were fully aware that you were already intending to use that name. I also don't think it's fair that your dad said you should change your daughter's name. He doesn't own a name either. Use the name you planned. They can get over it. Agree, the father is an idiot for saying that since his daughter will be born first, OP will have to change the name. I would find it absolutely hilarious if stepmom had the baby late and OP had hers early, meaning that the dad is completely wrong in who was born first. This actually happened to my cousin and I. He was late and I was early. Oh my goodness, everyone's the idiot here. This sounds messy and maybe, just maybe, you and your dad's wife are having a bit of a contest, and it isn't actually about the names. Just make everyone happy and go no contact with them. Your dad would be too busy with his new kid to care about you and your kid anyway. He can wait another 20 years to become a grandfather to his new kid's children. I, 45 male, live with my wife, 43, and kids, teen male and tween female. My sister, Margot, 33, her wife, Alexandra, 35 female, and their 2 kids, male young grammar school and toddler female, live in the same city as we do. My son adores his cousins and often asks to go over to his aunts. Margot says it's okay, so I send him over quite often, maybe once a week or so. This started around 6 months ago because before that Margot lived in a different state. For some background information, I'm a Christian and so is my wife and our kids. When it comes to Margot and Alex, they're both atheists. It doesn't affect our relationship at all and we all love each other. However, my son has been making comments very similar to what Alex would say about most things. Alex is a surgeon and my son looks up to her a lot, which is why he's very easily influenced by her views. He would say all these things and try to change our minds at the table. So I called Alex and told her that my son was being influenced by her. I asked her to give him some space so he could find out what he thinks on her own. She said more information would only do him good and that he was a smart boy and would be a delightful man when he grew up, no matter what he believed. I asked her to please not talk to him about these things. She got mad and said I was controlling, and as long as my son was allowed to come over, she would let him choose the topic of their discussions. Both Margot and Alex are acting cold toward me. It has me wondering, am I the idiot in any of this? LMAO, you are the idiot. I asked her to give him a bit of space so he could find out what he thinks on his own. I think you mean, I asked her to give him some space so we could keep telling him what he thinks. So the kid has questions, Auntie answers the question, and the parents get upset because questioning is the enemy. I've heard this story before. I would have respected OP more if they were open and said, we're going to raise him our way until he's an adult, then he can do what he wants. But trying to pull the, he needs to make his own decisions but only using the information I provide him crap is really lame. Dude, how is your son to make an informed decision without knowledge? Sounds like what you want is for him to be a blind sheep and follow what you believe. My 35 female husband passed away a few years ago in an accident, so now it's just me and my son, young grammar school age. My husband was the main breadwinner, so it's been rough. I work until 8 and he gets out of school at 3. My sister-in-law doesn't work, her husband owns a very successful business and she helps out. Sister-in-law picks up my son from school and brings him to her house to hang out and do homework until I can pick him up. On Wednesday, she called me while I was already at work to tell me she and her husband got last-minute concert tickets, so she couldn't pick him up from school. I was angry. It would be one thing if I knew in advance and could make other arrangements, but she just sprung it on me. I asked her to reconsider and reminded her that she made this commitment and that breaking it would be really crappy. She still went to the concert. I had to leave work 6 hours early and lost out on all those hours. I figured since she put me in this spot, she should have to recoup my income. It's the only thing me and my son survive on. I sent her a Venmo request for the amount I lost out on. A few minutes later, I got a nasty text from her about how she wasn't paying for it. I had to send my son home with one of his friends yesterday and today because she won't pick him up. I told some of my friends and they're 50-50 on if I should have done it, but I need that income and she made a commitment to me and my son. That's more important than going to a concert to get drunk. Edit, she helps me out for free with my son. This is amazingly stupid. Your sister-in-law babysits for free and you want to charge her money when she can't babysit for free? Wild. You are the idiot. Your sister-in-law is not your personal slave. Your kid is your problem, but you sure seem to have dumped so much parental responsibility on your sister-in-law that you somehow think now that she's a parent and she owes you money to take care of your own kid. That's not how it works. The attitude is crazy. She said she helps out, in quotes. The level of disrespect from the start to someone doing her this favor. I've been an aunt for more than half my life, and I feel lucky that my siblings always made their kids available to me to love and train and support. It's been a huge part of my life. But demanding I give up my life because they have kids was never their inclination, let alone their right to assume. OP doesn't seem to understand that her needs and sister-in-law's priorities will sometimes differ. Lady, I would never watch your child again. You can hire a babysitter. You are the idiot for the Venmo request and for not having a backup plan. What if it were a true emergency? What would you have done then? You must ensure you have backup plans for childcare for your son. Your sister-in-law has been providing free childcare 5 days a week for 5 or 6 hours a day, including picking up your son from school and probably providing snacks and meals. That's a lot. We pay $1,200 a month for daycare and aftercare. I'd probably step away from an unpaid job that expected me to pay when I couldn't work. You should readjust your thought process. He works away 5 days a week and is home on weekends before returning to work at 4 a.m. on a Monday morning. He works really long hours while he's away, so he's tired on weekends. A month ago, we had a beautiful picnic with our child, just the 3 of us, and it was extra special because it was at the Botanical Gardens where we got married. Our child hasn't been here before, so I wanted to take my time and enjoy the gardens, walk around after lunch and soak up the sunshine. He didn't want to walk around because he was tired, which I thought was fine even though I was disappointed, but I took our child for a walk without him. Anyway, on the way home he was complaining about how tired he was. When we got home he went for a nap. I got all the housework and cleaning done like I normally do on a Sunday, but the afternoon became evening and he was still taking his me time, so I got dinner in the oven and sorted out my birthday cake. When he joined us for dinner, my dad had arrived to eat with us. After dinner, my husband got himself some beers and sat down to watch sports with my dad. I got our child ready for bed and I asked him to help. Our child was having a difficult time drifting off, and usually I drive around for a little bit to help Bubba find sleep. He didn't want to help or take Bubba for a drive, he couldn't anyway, he was drinking. But I got really angry. I hadn't had a moment to myself. I was tired too, so I took Bubs for a drive and let my husband know I was in a bad mood. When we got back, I put Bubs to bed and he was already in bed trying to sleep for his early flight. I kinda got so mad about this. He heard me stomping around and came out the bedroom and told me to keep quiet. He had to sleep. Well, I lost it. I called him a few names, grabbed my keys and stormed out. I eventually came home after about 2 hours and slept on the couch. He thinks I was overreacting and he didn't do anything wrong because he had to get an early flight and works away all week. I don't think I am. It's only my birthday once a year. We don't bother with Valentine's Day or other commercial holidays. For me, birthdays and anniversaries are important. He got to the airport with almost no sleep and had a terrible week at work from that fatigue. I want to apologize to him, but I also think he needs to apologize to me as well. I don't normally expect him to do much on weekends. I also work full-time 40+ hours a week and am the sole parent for 5 days straight. 7 really. He spends most weekends resting himself for Monday. Not the idiot. So you both work full-time, but you also do all of the housework and childcare? Yeah, you work far more than him, and he can't even be bothered to spend time with you on your birthday? I think you should put your foot down. Either something changes or you leave him. You already are a single-parent household. It sounds like a really difficult arrangement for everyone involved. Everyone's overworked, no one's getting enough rest, no one is getting enough family time, no one has time for fun or self-care, and everyone is irritable, including the kids, it seems. Why don't they move closer to their husband's job? Why doesn't he work closer to home? What is OP getting out of the relationship? I don't see one. This arrangement makes zero sense to me. If they're both working full-time, then it stands to reason the husband could surely find something local even if a pay cut is required. In my head, they live in the suburbs of Western Australia and he works a FIFO mining job somewhere up in the middle of nowhere. It would probably work out cheaper not to move the whole family there and take her away from her much-needed support system. OP, I don't think this is about your birthday. That was just your tipping point. You guys have a communication problem. There's an imbalance in your relationship with your husband, and he's not seeing it. I'd suggest marriage counselling for the two of you, but I don't know if that's really a viable option to happen on weekends. Or use some of that FIFO money to get a cleaner. At least then you would have time to relax and fix the marriage. My dad passed away when I was only a baby, so my paternal grandparents were my main caregivers while my mom worked until I was about 4 when she met Jason. There was some weirdness between them and I'm not sure about all that went on, but I do know when they were engaged, which was 6 months after they met. Mom was in an accident and my grandparents took care of me until Mom got out. I know this angered Jason and my mom. They felt like my grandparents should have left me with Jason and given me the chance to bond with him because, to hear my mom tell it, all I wanted was my grandparents when I was little, and when the accident first happened, I cried for them when I realised I couldn't see her. It sounds like a social worker might have been involved, though I don't really remember it. Jason adopted me when I was 5. He and my mom had just gotten married. They told me it was going to happen and I asked them not to, but they told me Jason was going to be my dad. I never called him Dad. I always used his first name and called him my stepdad, which bothered them. They blamed my grandparents because they shared much about my dad with me. Mom tried to cut me off from my grandparents, but the courts declared that since I had such a strong attachment to my grandparents and they were a connection to my biological dad, I deserved to maintain that relationship. I ended up getting to see them every other weekend, and I got one overnight a month with them. I loved it. I never felt fully comfortable with Jason. He tried super hard to be my dad. He would spoil me and would take time out of his day to spend it with me, but he was also so jealous when he saw that I kept a photo of my dad close by my bed, and when he walked in on me talking to the photo when I was little. He'd get upset when I wrote notes for my dad's grave for Father's Day. As a kid, I used to believe more in people existing after death and knowing what we said to them and wrote for them, so I did that sometimes. I can recognize that Jason was pained by the fact I was talking to and writing to a dad I never knew and would never remember and still used his first name, but it doesn't change how I felt or how I feel today. His hatred for my grandparents didn't win me over either. I do think I loved Jason, but I would never say he was my dad. I'm now in my 20s and engaged to a wonderful human. My grandma is going to walk me down the aisle. Before asking, I told my mom and Jason so they could be prepared. Jason asked about money, which I'd never asked for or discussed with him. When I told him my fiancé and I were paying, he offered to pay so he could give me away. I got mad, told him again that I never asked for that, and said it was insulting to think he could pay me to walk me down the aisle. He and my mom think I'm insensitive to his feelings, given I know he considers me his daughter, and I've never accepted him as my dad. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. It makes sense that after bonding so much with your grandparents that you would prefer one of them to walk you down the aisle, compared to a man who sounds like he's forcing a father-daughter relationship with you and trying to bribe his way into your ceremony. If he really loves you, he should want you to be happy more than he wants to walk you down the aisle. What so many parents fail to realize is, if they stop trying to force a relationship, the odds are good a relationship will form. For example, if Jason were more secure and didn't try to push you away from your grandparents and get mad you had a photo of your dad, you probably would have been able to get closer to him. Exactly, he can't just try and buy his way into your ceremony after years of a toxic relationship. While traditionally the father of the bride walks her down the aisle, you were robbed of this choice at a very young age. And since you never had that kind of bond with your stepdad, it's understandable to want someone else to walk you down the aisle. I love that you chose your grandma, and I'm sorry that your mom and stepdad reacted badly. I wish you a wonderful ceremony and a happy marriage.